Okay, got it. Okay, so welcome. I'm Ashley McClure, and this is Climate Health Now's March community meeting, Daylight Savings Monday. This is actually our very first community meeting we've ever had on Monday. So we're trying new things, trying to be accessible for different people who have outstanding obligations. So thank you for joining. This is an especially exciting meeting because of our topic being something that we don't talk about as much as we would like to. So the theme is telling our stories of why we care about climate change in order to inspire health colleagues to join us in action. And if you do want to write your name obviously in the chat, and then pronouns if you want, along with where you're calling in from, that would be great. So always anchoring in our mission, which is to organize and mobilize the California health community to advocate for equitable systems level climate action. So we all know that our individual clinical care or individual work is inadequate if we are not making systems level change together. So that's our North Star. And today, the plan for our hour together is we'll do a little intro or welcome for any new members. I'll do the tiniest overview of storytelling for climate action, or public narrative kind of overview is another way it's described. And then I'm so grateful that Flannery is here with us, who's a experienced organizer, and she'll be coaching two of our very own CHN members and team co-leaders on their own public narratives or their story of why they're involved in climate advocacy. And then lastly, Brenda will be talking about the opportunity to work with the CHN Speaks team to potentially give your first talk this year to colleagues. So we'll talk about the applications that we have opening today to get coached on how to give a talk to some colleagues, and then we'll wrap up. So if there are any new members on today, we would love you to come off mute and say hi. Maybe, is it Talitha? If you want to say hi, we would welcome you.
Sure, it's Talitha.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll be on audio only as I'm driving. I'm the chaplain at Children's Hospital Oakland and the brand new chair of a brand new green team there. And I'm the author of a book on spiritual care for young people in the climate crisis.
Whoa.
And I'm really happy to be on my first meeting with you.
That's really cool. Maybe we need to have you back in the future to talk about the book you wrote. That's amazing.
Happy to.
Good. Welcome.
I'm already machinating on that. Yes.
Okay. Me too. We share this. Wonderful. So I think we're good. Good to see you, Robin and Bill and everybody who's here. So thank you for joining. So we often come to this graphic that is from Marshall Gans, one of my most treasured professors ever, who, this kind of represents community organizing in a different way. So the head is where we often are in talking about kind of strategy and, how we are going to work together to be a significant part of catalyzing climate solutions in California. So that's the head, is obviously the strategy, but where it's harder and where we don't go as often, maybe just CHN, but maybe people in general, who knows, is the heart part. And that's the narrative, and that's the why we're doing this. And that's the, emotional kind of motivation for why we spend the time that we don't have to do more work. And that's why I'm really excited about today and this theme. So we'll be talking about narrative and using that to invite more people to join us in action. So this is this cool graphic that I like a lot from a great network called Leading Change Network. And I like it because, so this is representing the five of the community organizing kind of skills or practices that we try to anchor to, and we're trying to learn more about ourselves and teach each other. So it's all about using our resources, the CHN constituency, which is just a group, working towards a shared goal, how we use our resources to achieve our shared goals, which is stopping the climate crisis. So one of the first community organizing leadership practices is public narrative. And I hadn't heard about that before I took this class with Marshall Gans ever, but it's basically how we use our stories to inspire people to join us. The classic example is, this is something that Barack Obama excelled at, because he could kind of give you those goosebumps, he could bring tears to your eyes. And usually people use Hillary Clinton as an example of not mastering the public narrative as well, to really kind of be that leader that calls more people to join. So that's why we're starting here, as kind of establishing our stories as a way to inspire and grow our community. And then in other workshops and stuff, we talk about building relationships and one-on-ones with other members, structuring teams to be really effective, planning strategy, which is more the head side, obviously, and then acting together. But today, our focus is narrative. And this is kind of a wordy slide, but I thought it was worthwhile words. So this is all from Marshall Gans, who's a legendary community organizing professor who worked with like Cesar Chavez and has done amazing work among other leaders that he worked with. So what does it mean to tell a story for climate action? That can be kind of a funny title, and even hard to like kind of break down what that means. But the way that I understand it is that telling our story can be a leadership skill if we approach it from a strategic way. And this is all quotes from Gans, saying that organizing is motivated by shared values, which are expressed through public narrative, that framework. So by learning this craft of public narrative, which Jeff and Cindy are going to illustrate for us, we can access our shared values and our emotional resources that make us kind of take on more volunteer roles and do more work around climate. We can access those in order to respond to challenges like this with courage instead of reacting from fear. So it helps kind of, those shared values help to give us that courage that can be hard to come by. And as we learn to tell stories of sources of our own values, which the lingo that's talked about sometimes is telling our own story of self, then we enable other people that we're talking with to get us and to feel like they can kind of understand where we're coming from and hopefully relate to us. By telling the stories of the sources of values that we share in common, us as Climate Health Now, California Health community members, then we enable other people to get each other and to feel like they're a part of a group that kind of gets them also. And then by recognizing this current moment as one of urgent choice, which we all know is the case, year after year is hotter and hotter, and very importantly, combining that with proposing a hopeful way forward, say, this is a pivotal moment and this is what we can do together, then that is what is commonly called as the story of now. And that giving people an option for where to channel kind of that sense of connection and motivation that we've brought up with the story of self and us, then we can motivate action together. So in a graphic version, this story of self, of when we first started to care about climate change and what we did about it, that invites other people who are listening to kind of come into relationship with us, to get us. And then the story of us invites others to join our community and feel a part of our community. And then the snowball keeps growing and we invite others to join us in action. And that's when we give them a clear way to channel the concern and sense of connection that we've brought up with other parts of the story. And then really importantly, I think this is really hard, and especially in, kind of the health trainings, this isn't a place we go very often, but the goal is that we, in public narrative, that we're drawing a picture from an album. We're not telling somebody about the picture. We're trying to like visualize it. We're not writing a theoretical text. We're really trying to have people kind of feel it like they're there with us in the experience. And then this is kind of another way to illustrate. So the way that we show our values is we talk about challenges that we've perhaps faced, and you'll hear some amazing ones today. So the challenge, something that we had to face, and then how we responded to that and what the choice was that we made in response to that challenge, and then what happened because of that choice. And that's how we show people who we are, is through showing how we responded to those challenges. And then the story of us is talking about our common values as Climate Health Now members, California Health Community members, our common challenges, which there's plenty of. They could be, in this context, obviously, like heat waves, fires, extreme weather, eco anxiety. There's a long list. And then our common choice of how we responded. And then the story of now, kind of the challenge that we're facing, and should say urgent. The theme is often there's the vision for the dream we could move towards together, towards the hope, or there's the nightmare if we don't take action, and that's combined with the ask. And then I think this is my last one. So coming back to this kind of theme that we're really trying to motivate through shared values, through the stories. And I couldn't be more grateful actually to both Cindy Hawk, who's joining us even on her vacation right now, and then to Jeff Mann, who are two of our three CHN Speaks team co-leads. So you'll be hearing more about that later from Brenda, but I really take my hat off to both of you for writing your public narrative story, and then also to Flannery Hawk. Also, I didn't think of how your last name is so similar. So we'll be coaching. So I really appreciate you all putting yourself out there in this way that we don't do very often. And to Flannery for showing us kind of how coaching can happen between colleagues in order to get kind of, to do iterations of our narrative to make them stronger. So I'm going to pass it off, and we're going to take time now. So Cindy, if you wouldn't mind going first, and Cindy's story will be around 7 minutes or so, and then Flannery will do some coaching. And the goal of the coaching is really to help Cindy's story kind of, get more to a place where it gives you goosebumps, where it brings out, tears in your eyes maybe, and really inspires more and more people to join Cindy in taking action. So a lot of words, and I'm excited to pass it to you, Cindy. Sorry, we can't hear you, even though it doesn't say you're muted. Maybe, why don't we switch a little? And Cindy, we're gonna give you a minute. We're gonna go to Jeff. I don't know if it would be helpful to call in on your phone. That's what I always do as my backup. Or still don't hear you. No. Okay, we're gonna switch. We're gonna go to Jeff if you're up for that, Jeff.
Sure.
Okay.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, maybe, I don't know if Amanda, if you could maybe try to work with Cindy. And we'll go to you, Jeff. So thank you. And we'll come back to you, Cindy, shortly. So the floor is yours. And thank you again, Jeff, for going first and for doing this.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity. I am Jeff Mann. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I've been practicing in Oakland and Berkeley community for 25 years, and I want to share a story of how I became active in the climate community. I have always loved nature, and growing up in California, it is easy to see why. We are surrounded by natural beauty, from the grandeur of our redwood forests to beautiful sunsets over the Golden Gate to regional parks full of oak woodlands. Appreciation of our natural world brings together my entire family. My wife, a wildlife biologist, and I honeymooned in the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. We were so taken with the area that we have returned nearly every summer. We've explored the Tetons and the other national parks of the West with our children over the years. Every summer, I go backpacking with some friends in the Eastern Sierras. One special thing about these trips is finding ourselves alone in a remote and stunning wilderness. On one particular trip, we sat by a beautiful meandering creek in Little Peat Meadow, an expansive valley floor along the John Muir Trail. I thought to myself how untouched by humans this place felt, the only sign of humanity being the narrow trail that we were walking along. Unfortunately, this thought did not last for long. As we began ascending out of the valley, the trail led us through an area that had recently burned. But this was not an ordinary fire that had come through. This place looked like a moonscape. There was no vegetation left and only a few charred tree stumps to know that it had once been a forest. I knew that fires were burning hotter as a result of our warming climate. This was the proof. We had witnessed other evidence of climate change's effects. Trees were dying from bark beetle infestation because the winters were not cold enough to kill the beetles. Drought affected when we could go backpacking because later in the summer the creeks would dry up. The climate was changing literally right before my eyes. And I knew right then, seeing what had happened with the forest fire, I knew right then I needed to do more to protect the natural world that means so much to me and my family. I was driving an electric vehicle, I was not eating red meat, but clearly this was not nearly enough. The opportunity to do more for the climate presented itself a couple months later, in September of 2019, on the day of the worldwide climate strikes. I was invited to join the recently founded Climate Health Now, led by Ashley and Amanda. CHN was a group of health professionals advocating for the climate. On that day, we were speaking about the health harms of climate change at the local offices of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Speakers Dianne Feinstein, and Kamala Harris. I was quite out of my comfort zone because I had never been in an elected official's office before, let alone three of the most powerful legislators in the country. It was eye-opening and empowering, seeing the staff members of these congresswomen intently listening to what we healthcare professionals were saying. My concern for the environment and my practice of medicine have taken me in some different directions over the past 4 years. As healthcare providers, we provide relief of pain and suffering for our patients. Unfortunately, we have come to realize that this comes with an environmental cost. The medical field accounts for 8.5% of our nation's carbon emissions. And as an orthopedic surgeon, I'm responsible for even a greater share than most other specialists. The operating room has a very large carbon footprint, and our specialty has not done nearly enough to try and address this. However, we are beginning to make some progress on understanding the scope of the problem and what some possible solutions are. Many healthcare providers are making changes in their clinics, hospitals, and their specialty societies to become more environmentally friendly. Some projects, including eliminating single-use items and using fewer instrument trays in the operating room, carefully separating trash in the hospital setting, and working with our cafeteria to serve more sustainable food items. It is not an easy task, even though most healthcare providers agree that such projects are important. There's often little or no time in our busy schedules to consider, let alone change what we are doing. Those of you who are listening to this have made a commitment to use your healthcare voices and your healthcare actions to advocate for the environment. You all have your own climate story, your own aha moments, like mine on the John Muir Trail, realizing that I needed to play a part in saving the natural beauty for the next generations. My children are young adults, and unfortunately, they are noticing the effects of climate change already in their lives. Whatever situation or event has caused you to become more active in the space, I hope you will continue in your journey and continue to be inspired to help solve this problem.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Well done. Can Jeff and I share a screen? I don't know how you want to do it, but
I didn't figure out the like highlighting thing. So we'll just
I don't know either, Flannery. That would be beautiful, but I don't think we know how to do it.
okay, maybe if we're all in the gallery. Anyway, hi Jeff, great to meet you. Really well done. I want to point out just a little pre-coaching and just some wonderful elements of your story, which are the sensory details that, the evocative sensory details throughout, that you were able to provide, including what you appreciated early in your life or what you've appreciated all throughout your life, the details on the JMT, and the moments. I think you had some nice moments, certainly that moment on the trail, um, a moment of meeting elected officials that seemed overwhelming, and that was truly vulnerable. I also thought you had some lovely vulnerability, um, in terms of feeling like what you were doing, not eating red meat, and what you were driving was not enough. In terms of having an awareness of your own specialty being, a problem. That's beautiful vulnerability, which is really powerful. What I wasn't expecting in this story is that you began to do the us and now. I thought this was only going to be a story of self. So I can see the us and now beginning to take shape. So really, really nice and thoughtful work. Some of the questions I have for you are about your origin. I hear this story about your appreciation for nature and you're returning to Yosemite year after year. I'm wondering if there's something in your origin of caring that called you to care, a moment that called you to care, a person that called you to care. Was
So to
Mhm.
care about the environment.
Yeah,
Hmm.
or that called you to leadership. I'm just going to close the door. And here's what I'd say: it could be to care
Yeah.
about the environment, but not every person in your specialty, not every person who goes to Yosemite is taking the extraordinary action that you took
Hmm.
to join this organization and join the climate fight.
Yeah. So I'm not sure I can think of one specific moment of origin for the environment. It was many, many years ago when I was
Hmm.
young and used to do, trips with my family when I was a young kid. And maybe there was one specific moment that I just took in a beautiful view or vista and said, wow, this is so meaningful to me. So I'm not sure I can come up with that.
Well, these are questions that you can continue
Yes,
to think about. I would
right.
I would
Uh-huh.
challenge you to think about a moment in your
Yeah.
early life. And maybe it's not about caring about the environment. It might have been about doing the right thing or calling you to lead. Because the other question is, what is it that calls you, as opposed to any other person in your specialty, to lead on this?
Hmm. Um,
Was there
well,
a person who pushed you?
um, I mean, I saw what we were able to do on that first day of the climate strike, and I saw what Amanda and Ashley and Cynthia Mahoney and lots of people who I'm forgetting at this time, who I hadn't known before, what what they were doing, and they were, expressing their concern, to the legislators. Um, so that was very inspiring to me to see that people were doing this and they were standing up and they weren't afraid to talk to, the
Hmm.
staffs of some of the most, powerful people in our country who were really making a difference. And as I said, I was out of my comfort zone in that. So I was very inspired by that.
Who do you remember speaking?
Um, I remember especially Cynthia Mahoney just because I knew her the most because I had met her and I think she was like one of the few that I recognized at the time. So, um,
Was it surprising to see Cynthia getting up there? And
um, I think a little bit. I think it was surprising for to see anybody getting up there and talking about climate and health. hadn't thought of that before, didn't exactly know what I was getting into, but knew that that it was important and I wanted to be a part of it.
Mm. Um, well, I would encourage you to think about a moment, we think about the origin story and the origin moment and the contemporary moment, that is there a moment in your early life, in your childhood, in your family, and an influential friend and experience that called you to care? And there's clearly something around the climate strike. I mean, first of all, I'd wondered what called you to go in the first place, but then to lead is another entire question. So I'd be interested if there's a moment in Cynthia's speech, or maybe it's not, maybe it was something else, that there's a moment that that really pushed you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and another question I have is the challenge. So in this moment where you're on the JMT, how was this what was the personal challenge for you? If that was when it was, where's the challenge?
The personal challenge for what? Becoming more active in the climate movement.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it was sort of um, as I saw the forest that had just been decimated, and just sort of realized that this wasn't an ordinary fire. This wasn't just sort of the normal, um, nature taking its course. This was the human influence on nature, and that realizing if something wasn't being done, that the rest of the forest and the rest of our natural environment was going to look like that someday. And that something being done, I realized I couldn't wait for other people to do that, that I needed to take a part in doing it,
And why couldn't you wait?
because this was happening before my eyes. I had been doing this for decades, for 50 years or so, and certainly the last 30 years realizing what I was seeing. And in the last, the prior few years, that I could see that the forests were changing really, every year, that this was very different than it was in the past, that humans were having a huge impact on our natural environment. And you could read about it in the newspaper and you can see what climate scientists would say, but to actually see that with my very own eyes, and to just sort of feel that, in these places, the natural world being so important, realizing that that was in danger.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a series of moments that maybe could use some exploration, where this wasn't one moment at one time, but there was something that built over, as you said, the last 50 years. And I'm curious about the moments in those years and how they were escalating challenges for you, and something I'd challenge you to explore in working on your story. Um, and then at this moment in the JNT, is that your moment of choice? Or is the moment at the climate strike your moment of choice? Where is the choice
Mm-hmm.
where you decided more than I got to do more than, not eat red meat
Yeah, probably more at the climate strike,
at the strike?
realizing what the possibilities were, what could be done. That I
And
know that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm hearing the people influenced you, and I'd be curious about the connection to other people, to Cynthia, to
Mm-hmm.
to Amanda, Ashley, or who is it?
Again, these were people that I didn't really know, so it was hard to say who the individual, other than just like the whole experience of that day, and seeing different people at every office, standing up and saying what was important to them, and what they wanted from the elected officials, what we were lobbying for.
Mm-hmm. Um, Well, I think there sounds like there's a lot there. There may be a moment or two or a person that was impressive, even if you didn't know them, or just the fact that they had the courage to do it sounds like it could have been a powerful influence. How are we doing on time? I want to be respectful.
We're running out a little bit, so it's a good time to wrap up.
So the other two things I would say to consider, I'm impressed that you're already thinking about the us and the now. As you consider the us, I would just challenge you to imagine that you are talking to the us, and that rather than healthcare workers, there's a couple moments where you said, I think we, but we are, imagine that we are the us, that whoever you're talking to is the us, and include us. Find a way to include us in the conversation or in experiences that you know are mutual, or some way that we, the us, will identify. And with the now, now is always going to point to a particular action. So is there something? What is the thing that you are doing that you're calling us to act about? But again, I think it's very advanced to already have been exploring the us and the now. And I didn't know that was the expectation, but I think it's a fantastic start and makes me very curious.
Me too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Yeah. And also, Flannery, I just really appreciate you, also teaching us about the coaching role, because that's not something we've talked about. So many thanks. Thea, I see your hand is up, but if it's okay with you, we're going to transition. Thank you again, Jeff. We're going to transition to Cindy to share your story. And maybe, Thea, if you want to put something in the chat, or then we'll come to that afterwards if we have time. All right, Cindy, how are we doing on volume? Let's see. No. Oh no, we can't.
Why doesn't she call in on the telephone?
Cynthia, Cindy, do you want to call in? We had thought it was fixed. Oh no.
I can, Cindy, I'm gonna text you. No, I'm gonna send you a text message. Hopefully this works.
Now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Don't change a thing.
Okay, this was a setting problem.
Okay.
Sorry about that. And Jeff, thank you for sharing your story. I'm very inspired by you already, so appreciated that. So should I begin? Yes, I'm Cindy Hawk. Hawk sounds like Doc. My father came from India, my mother from Indiana. I was born in Germany and grew up in Indiana and Pakistan. Initially a shy, skinny, awkward kid, I felt like an ugly duckling who didn't fit anywhere. Some tolerated or considered me exotic, others shunned or taunted me. When I was 6, living in Jeffersonville, Indiana, a kid called me the N-word. I didn't know what it meant, so I ran home to my mother and asked, "What is that?" She replied, "You are not that, but never repeat that bad word. They teased you because they're jealous. You're beautiful." I wondered, but what if I was? What about others who were? We then moved to Pakistan after my grandfather died. While shopping, children in tattered clothes surrounded our car, pressed their faces against the windows and begged for food. I asked my mom, "Why don't they have what they need?" She replied, "There but for the grace of God goes you." I had learned life is unfair. I began to wonder how I might help others less fortunate. We returned from Pakistan to the US in transition. The Civil Rights Act had passed. The Vietnam War was raging. Feminism was on the rise. People were rioting, demonstrating, and performing acts of civil disobedience. Change was in the air. While in the 7th grade, girls were required to wear dresses or skirts to school. My girlfriends and I decided we would protest. We hid pants in our backpacks, and when we got to school, we went to the bathroom, put on our pants, and walked nervously through the halls. We were promptly sent to the principal's office for violating the dress code. He called our parents to pick us up. The following year, girls were allowed to wear pants. This was not because of us, but due to changing social norms. Nevertheless, we had learned how to get into good trouble, and we learned that rules can change. I've always been drawn to the beauty and complexity of nature. My favorite childhood pastime was to explore the fossil beds by the Ohio River. In high school, I began hiking, backpacking, and fell in love with the wilderness. I read Thoreau and Emerson. The world seemed full of wonder. Concurrently, I learned about human-made dangers. We practiced drills in case of nuclear war. Rachel Carson described the harmful effects of pesticides in Silent Spring. After I read The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich, I asked my mom, "Can I get my tubes tied?" She replied, "Absolutely not. You're 15. You might change your mind." I did. Fascinated by life, I chose biology as my college major. I considered becoming a teacher or ecologist, then learned I might do more as a physician. I chose family medicine, the specialty that cares for the whole person in the context of their family, community, and environment. I could be an ecologist practicing global health. Our family lived in Uganda, Pakistan, and Switzerland. I launched family residency programs in these countries and Ethiopia. These experiences galvanized me to promote health equity, to become a health advocate, and to teach. My late husband, Bob, was a naturalist and research scientist who knew the name of every tree, flower, and shrub. With our 4 children, we spent as much time as possible in nature, exploring forests, mountains, rivers, and parks in the US and abroad, the Serengeti, the Himalayas, the Alps. We settled in Wisconsin, where Bob raised most of our food in a big organic garden. My university teaching practice cared for patients from womb to tomb in hospitals, clinics, and homes. We joined teachers, farmers, and seniors to establish walking trails, safety programs, and give doc talks about sex, drugs, and guns. I learned community is the smallest unit of health, as noted by Wendell Berry. Healthcare is important, but not sufficient. Health comes from the conditions in which people live, work, and play. Context matters. For 10 years, I directed the University of Wisconsin campus-wide Global Health Institute, based on the premise that health and diseases have no borders. We use the framework of One Health. The health of people and animals are inseparable from their environment. We recruited Jonathan Patz, a family physician who devoted his career to researching and educating about the risks of climate change to health. Jonathan and colleagues co-authored reports for the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, describing the catastrophic risks from carbon emissions raising global temperatures. The IPCC and Al Gore received the Nobel Peace Prize for their work in 2007. Physicians and activists like Jonathan opened my eyes to growing risks from climate change and demonstrated how physicians can advocate for policy changes. In 2017, I was recruited to serve as chair of family medicine at UCI. Naturally, I was concerned about the natural world, but I was too busy to pursue environmental advocacy. However, evidence continued mounting. 2023 was the hottest year recorded in modern history. We recognize climate change presents existential threats to human health and the sustainability of life on Earth. Increased temperatures have caused more frequent and extreme weather events, fires, and catastrophic flooding. These in turn affect food production, air quality, access to clean water, safe shelter, vector-borne diseases, essential infrastructure, and mass extinctions, threatening the health of people, animals, and ecosystems. Human-caused climate change is a wicked public health problem. Its etiology is multifactorial. Effective solutions will require many people taking many actions. Bill McKibben recommends, what can an individual do? Not act like an individual. Join forces with others. Create a movement. As my roles as grandmother, mother, physician, and elder have evolved, I cannot ignore mounting evidence of environmental and social collapse. I care about the world for current and future generations. Will they experience the beauty of nature? Will they be able to live? Contemplating retirement, I wanted to do more to protect the environment, our home. I explored organizations and found many who care. When I discovered Climate Health Now, I knew I had found my people. Dedicated health professionals speaking up to address the most serious challenge of our times. Mary Oliver asks, what is it you plan to do with your one proud, wild, and precious life? Will you join us? Add your voice, skills, and creativity to promote health for life on Earth and future generations. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm so glad we could hear you. Great. We'll pass it to you, Flannery. Thank you.
Great. I am so glad we figured out the mute question. That's fantastic. Really beautiful and strong origin story with many powerful moments that help me understand why you were called to lead, what called you to lead. Incredible vulnerability around the early experience of being called a slur, and your mother as a sounding board in terms of what that means, and you're repeating moments of your mother sort of reflecting and questioning, although I'm curious about that too. And that was an evolution of caring. It didn't happen to me, but it might not be true of me, but it could be. Or what about these children around the car? And then to the point of the pants story, which is fantastic because it is what I learned, helped you learn that change is possible. That was a powerful moment, if I got that right. It felt very hopeful because of that. So your story conveys hope. And also, I guess the assignment is us and now, because we're all experimenting with us and now here, which is fantastic. I didn't get that was part of the question. My questions, well, one piece of feedback and then some questions, which is, a story of self should be a story of how you're called to leadership and called to care. And it became a bit of a biography. And I felt the pressure of you having to include all of the powerful moments in your life to sew that together. And I want to give you permission to hone it into what's essential for yourself. On the other hand, I'm interested, as clear as your origin story was, is the moments in your contemporary story. There were many. Is there one that you want to focus on that was a contemporary challenge, choice, and outcome? Or a moment that called you to lead in this way with CHN?
Well, I'm rather new to CHN. I think it was talking with Margie, to be honest. Margie's right there.
Margie.
And once I sent in the email, I was searching around. And once I had this conversation with Margie, I knew she was so passionate about what she was doing. It kind of lit the fire in me to say, okay, this is an organization I can put my weight behind, because I could tell from Margie how passionate she was.
What
And
told
I
you
could
that?
very
What did
much relate.
What did Margie say that let you know that?
I think it was just the fact that she took the time to call and talk to me. and she listened and she asked me questions. And instead of some anonymous email, robot, it was a real person that I was having a conversation with. And not only was Margie, she was a doctor who was also retired and has grandchildren and is running around doing various different things like me. But she finds time to do this work. And I'm like, if Margie can do it, then I think I could join in, right? Margie was really a very important conversation. And I mean, that was just a couple months ago, right, Margie? It wasn't very long, maybe December, January.
Well, Cynthia, I would challenge you to really think about that Margie conversation. That makes it come absolutely alive. It's the story of an organizer. It's the story of what this is all built on, is relationships. I think that's incredibly powerful. You clearly have a vibrant rendition of that conversation. And I love that you're saying that she called and listened and asked questions and connected as a person. Honestly, for the story of the self, you could edit some of the biographical details for that moment with Margie. I think it's worth it.
Okay.
And similarly for the us and now, if you talk about Margie, now you're talking to us. It's sort of a great transition to that we all have that ability to have conversations with each other, if that's in fact what you want to say. But your story seems to be about connecting to CHN in this way and finding your people. And, Margie found a person, found a you, and you're finding your people. So I would say, similar to the feedback for Jeff, is the who are the people, and Margie is one of the people. And for the now is the what. What exactly? What is the ask? For the self, us, and now, we want to have something very real that we're calling on people to do. I hear that it's joining CHN. Is that right?
I mean, that's all I know at this point,
Okay.
because I don't feel like we have any action items, but I'm waiting, I'm ready.
Brenda has one opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fantastic work on both stories. Just delightful to get to coach you both.
Oh, yay! Huge round of applause. Very vulnerable, takes a ton of work, and I really appreciate both of you for writing it. And Flannery, I have been taking notes from how you're coaching, so a huge thank you for sharing. So, all right, so we're going to transition to Brenda talking about one of our new teams, CHN Speaks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brenda. I'm an ophthalmologist in Los Angeles, and I have the distinct pleasure to introduce our awesome new team called CHN Speaks. If you've been with CHN for some time, you may have heard this term being used before. And I'm so happy to say that we are officially launching this team with amazing team co-leads. So I'm going to cut right to the chase and talk a little bit about what this team is all about. So CHN Speaks this year in 2024 will aim to equip around 10 members, so CHN members, to talk to a group of their health community peers and colleagues about the health and equity impacts of climate change in California. And these presentations will also include actionable opportunities for anybody in the California health community to join us to take action to bring an end to the climate crisis. And so Cindy and Jeff already did such a wonderful, eloquent introduction to themselves. I would like to also introduce officially our third team co-lead, Carol Fonseca. So she is currently finishing a pediatric residency in Michigan, but she will be moving back to California this summer to start a pediatric hospital medicine fellowship at UCSF. Prior to joining the health community, she was a science teacher and worked on environmental restoration projects. So and I'm sure everyone will be excited to hear more about her story as well. And notably, she was one of the founders of the group called Medical Students for a Sustainable Future. And she has developed a climate change curriculum for her residency program. She's been giving grand rounds to local children's hospitals in Michigan, and doing a lot of work for residency education regarding climate change. And so we are also very excited for everyone to meet Carol as well when she gets officially back to California. And we know we can expect awesome things from the three of them together here. Next slide. All right, so here is our ask for our meeting here. So CHN Speaks, now that we've launched this team, we want to do something. So here is now everyone's opportunity to be a part of this team, to receive personalized coaching from Carol, Cindy, and Jeff, to give a talk about climate, health, and equity sometime this year. So we're gonna, I think, drop in the chat perhaps the form that you can fill out, that anybody who is a CHN member can fill out just to express your interest. This isn't a legally binding document. It's not something that says that you're, bound to spend these many hours or do this project if at some point it doesn't work out for you. But we'd love to hear from you to log your interest in receiving this, mentorship in order to give a special talk about climate, health, and equity. So again, open to all CHN members, meaning you are in California and you are part of the health community. You do not need to have any public speaking experience. You do not need to have given any presentation about climate and health before, or really any presentation at all. Our personalized mentorship will include presentation, speaking tips, and really how to get your message across and how to give a presentation in general, plus, of course, the very special tidbits about presenting about climate and health. I think it is always a thought that we all bring to the table here of, well, I'm not an expert. I don't know, all the facts about climate. I'm not a climate scientist. How am I supposed to be someone who speaks about this? And as you can see earlier in this presentation, Jeff and Cindy are not climate scientists, but they were able to share a very powerful story, and that can certainly be worked into a presentation about climate and health. And, our team co-leads can really help you with that. And also, no need to have already set up a presentation with a health community group already. We will help you figure out how to set up that presentation, whether it be a group at your workplace or a group, of other health community members at not your workplace. We can help with that as well. And so I do want to emphasize that everyone has to start somewhere. I think perhaps some people in this meeting have already given a talk. Other people may not have. And I would say it's been a really transformative experience for a lot of people who have already given a talk. And so we want to help you. If you haven't ever given a talk before, we would love to help you get to that point. And I think, you can find it to be a very meaningful experience. All right. I think that's it.
This is the year. So yes, we would love to hear from you. Thanks, Amanda, for dropping the link to the form in the chat, which is just a way to start a conversation. So thank you. Are there any questions at this point? No? Okay. So we always like to finish with, if you want to share, Amanda, about how to join, and then save the dates.
Awesome. Sounds good. Excellent. And thank you. I don't know, I think Flannery's on. Flannery, thank you so much for joining us. And again, to Cindy and Jeff for sharing those stories. And this is, as you all have heard, the first time we've been kind of talking about CHN Speaks for a few years, but this is the first time we're really launching something like this. So we're excited and eager to hear what folks think and to see what we can all do together. Let's see, I will share here for anyone who is inspired or motivated to share about climate health now with other people who might be interested in joining us. We are open to any member of the health community, widely defined. So people in public health, people working in clinical settings, people working, basically across the health spectrum in California to join us. You can refer them to our website or scan that QR code. And then Ashley, if you want to go forward one slide. Awesome. And we're just going to do some save the dates and reminders, and I think I can get this whole thing to go in the chat also. So we have got a lot of programming coming up. One big thing that we're internally very excited about is all of our programming and links to register are now on our website. So you can always check out upcoming events there as well. A week from today, we'll have our first ever new member welcome meeting led by Margie and Cindy, who are both on today's call. So if you are new-ish to Climate Health Now or feel just like you want to be a part of that, we would love to have you there. Our next discussion club meeting, we'll be talking about the documentary River Blue, which is about the fashion industry's environmental impact, coming up at the end of March. We'll have our April community meeting in mid-March, and we'll have, I skipped over it, we'll have our third and final meeting in our series related to our campaigns on Thursday, April 4th. And then closing us out at the end of April, we're going to have a healthcare sustainability themed meeting with the details forthcoming. And then one other thing I'm just going to put in a plug for that's not on here, but on Friday of this week, I would ask that you all keep a lookout in your email. We are going to be, for the first time ever, sending out an email asking for feedback on and input from members on what legislative or regulatory campaigns you would like us to work on together this year out of a list of options that we will provide. So please be tuned for that. We should be sending that on Friday.
Your vote counts.
Yeah, yes.
But you only have a small window to submit your vote. So
Yes,
please
yes.
for that. Good idea. Awesome. I think we are good. So yes, this was awesome. And Brenda, thank you for finishing us off and talking about the new team, and Cindy and Jeff and Flannery. The gratitude is deep, and I really admire your work on telling your story. And again, thank you, Flannery, for being an example and teaching us about the coaching side too. All right, y'all. Hope you have a wonderful week and March, and we will be in touch. Yay, thank you. Bye.